Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I would call our meeting to order today for May the 8th. And before I really get started, I'd like to thank Councillor Burke for filling in for me at the last meeting. Thank you, Councillor Burke. So first thing we'll deal with this, of course, is to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. Recommendation reads as follows: that the agenda for the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We'll deal with disclosure of pecuniary interest today and anything in today's agenda. I have none to declare. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, under planning 2A and 2G. Oh, I have an indirect pecuniary interest.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Rankin?
None.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm on the hook here now for a little county council update. So I just had a few items I wanted to kind of bring up and discuss. In terms of course, we're entering construction season, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some county road activities in Wellington North in particular. So County Road 109 from the Dufferin County border to close to County Road 16 is to be repaved this summer. So the flat fast portion of 109 is going to get faster, I'm afraid. But there is a lot of traffic on that road, and certainly it'll benefit from that. I just wanted to give a little update too with we've been involved or had a chance for involvement with regard to the EA for the bridges on 109 on just east of Arthur. There's 4 of them to be redone. Staff are trying to figure out a way to facilitate traffic flow while replacing those bridges. 3 of the 4, they're looking at the possibility of bringing in a what's called a Bailey Bridge or a temporary bridge to facilitate traffic flow while they're being reconstructed. But the 4th one, unfortunately, will require a full closure because it's too close. There's too close to too many other things to allow a temporary bridge to be used there. So there's trying to figure out how to make that work because there is significant traffic on that road, and a full closure is it may involve a half closure kind of thing, but they're trying to figure out what the best way to deal with that is. That's in the future forecast, but it's not that far off to start dealing with those bridges. I wanted to speak a little bit. I was at an event last week in Guelph, reopening an existing youth homelessness shelter facility that can serve Wellington County residents as well. It is in the city of Guelph, unfortunately, but any youth between 15 and 25, there's newly upgraded facilities available to provide a place for them if they're homeless, to help them transition back to a more homed environment. It's kind of nice to see that there's such a wonderful place for them to be. And just homelessness, of course, I think there's some people have been at some conferences and so on, meetings with regard to homelessness. It's a major challenge in our community. And sometimes in the rural area, we don't necessarily see it, but it definitely is here. And finding a way to help those who are homeless is a top priority. The province did come with some additional funds to help Guelph Wellington deal with homelessness, but unfortunately the need far outstrips the available places. So I'm not sure how we're going to try to bridge that gap, but again, we're working on trying to find a way to do that. And the only other area I really wanted to highlight was with regard to the planning environment. As I'm sure all of you have heard, there's significant changes coming from the province in regard to our planning policies and those types of things. And sometimes it's a little bit unexpected and a bit of a moving target. The county submitted official plan amendment, I think it's 119. Matthew's going to correct me if I've got it wrong. Looking at an aspect of the municipal comprehensive review, talking about predictions in terms of accommodating numbers of people. The amendment itself did not yet consider. We're working on another amendment to talk about land needs. And that particular amendment did not include land needs, but when the response came back from the province, which by the way is unappealable, it included major municipal urban center boundary expansions across Wellington County and alterations to significant policies countywide. The only change that affects the Wellington North directly was the change of a property in Arthur. Was formerly employment lands, now been flipped into greenfield, which kind of means future development. So that's in the works. You probably heard a little bit about that. And there's other changes in the province is proposing with regard to provincial policy statement that are pending. Commenting period is open till early June. I think there's maybe some things in that that we may want to send some comments back to the province on, because it certainly is, there's major changes proposed with regard to hamlets, rural severances, and a number of other topics that I think, weigh into the things that we've been trying to work on and building our community. I think some of the policies being proposed are a threat to our largest industry, or the agricultural industry. And I think the county report is coming to the planning committee on Thursday. I will be asking county staff to send that to us as a primer for some discussion. And I think this is something that this council may be interested in weighing in on as well prior to the commenting period being up. I don't have anything else in my update particularly, but I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, and just thanks for that report too. When is the 109 being paved, and then when are they thinking about the bridges, and in particular the final one that needs to, like, they would do a half deck at a time kind of a deal, or?
They haven't finalized the procedure yet for that one bridge. If I can take the last question first. Trying to figure out what the solution is, whether it is a half closure and then traffic control, or whether it's a full closure and try to get it done more quickly. Obviously, when you do a half closure, it lengthens the project out. So still trying to figure out what that trade-off is. And they haven't made a final decision, but the county is looking at a Bailey Bridge or a temporary bridge for the other three, which would allow single lane traffic flow, but it'll still facilitating the traffic flow, and certainly wide enough that it'll handle farm equipment as well. So, and sorry, your first question. Timeline for the bridges, not this year, obviously, 25, I think, is when most of it is being considered. But again, we're back to staging, because there's 4 bridges so close together that all have to be done. Figuring out the best staging that's the least disruptive to traffic is, it may be spread out over a few years to try to minimize the impact. And the paving is to be done relatively soon. So a company out of Cambridge, Brantco, won the tender to do that. And they're actually already out doing some of the paving contract work. The exact time when that paving project will be completed, I don't know the final date, but it will be sooner rather than later. They're using, that company is starting their season, if I can put it that way, in Wellington County, and looking to move on to other projects. So there's a number of projects around the county. The other one that's relatively close to us is 123 between Palmerston and Tiviotdale. And I think they're talking about starting it next week. So I think it'll be sooner rather than later. Any other questions, Councillor Hearn?
Answered my first question, which is around the timing. I was a little concerned around IPM, so we don't have to worry about that. But my second question is going back to the PPS comments. I agree that some of them are there's a lot going on there, an awful lot. So I was wondering, in addition to when the report comes back, the planning report from the county comes to us, whether at the same time, seeing that the document is so sweeping and changing to rural Ontario, whether we could ask Dr. Wayne Caldwell to come in and have a chat with us. I've seen a couple of his presentations about the topic. And if anyone doesn't know Wayne, he's doctor or professor of planning. At least he was at the University of Guelph. He's about, I don't know, 10 days or 2 weeks retired. So just reaching out to him and see whether he could explain some of the changes that could happen as a result of it, make it more understandable.
It probably would be helpful. I came across a report last week out of Middlesex County where they had prepared a document, Middlesex County planning staff prepared a document that said, okay, this is what it could look like across Middlesex County. And it's pretty dramatic. And so, we hear about provincial policy statements and they seem pretty big, picture, pretty vague. But there are direct implications. And I think this is one of those cases where those direct implications are very concerning for a community like ours. Any other questions or comments?
Just from a protest, are staff being directed to invite Wayne to speak or?
Sure. Yep. I think Lisa probably has contact information.
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so next. Oh. Darren, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Lennox. Just with the planning report, we've talked about it internally, and our hope is to have county planning staff come to that meeting with the report and be able to present that to council.
Thanks, Darren. I think that's great. I think it's one of those things that it's pretty important for us to have pretty thorough discussion on. So thank you for that. So next we'll recess our council meeting to move into a public meeting for a planning matter. I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting of council at 2:12 p.m. for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. This is for 5053745 Ontario Inc., a zoning bylaw amendment. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Hearn, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks. So we are recessed from our regular council meeting. I will call the public meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest in regard to this agenda, this meeting's agenda. I have none to declare. Councillor Rankin?
None.
Okay, Councillor Hearn?
No?
Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Okay, thank you. The land subject of a proposed amendment is described as part of Park Lot 2 and municipally known as 405 Wellington Street East. The property subject to the amendment is approximately 0.22 hectares in size with an existing single detached dwelling. The purpose and effect of the amendment is to rezone the lands from residential R2 zone to site-specific residential R3-74, permit an 8-unit stacked townhouse development with a reduced minimum lot area and interior side yard setback. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and as well to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on April 3rd, 2023.
Matthew, welcome.
There we go. Okay, good afternoon. And through you, Chair, before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment seeking to rezone the subject lands from residential R2 to site-specific residential R3-74. The purpose of today's meeting is really to go over the proposal and allow the public as well as council an opportunity to express any comments or concerns, ask questions from the developer and associated consultants. So to provide a quick overview of the subject lands, as mentioned, there's an existing dwelling as well as an accessory structure on the property, which is proposed to be demolished. The lot is approximately 0.5 of an acre in size in Mount Forest. The applicant is proposing to build an 8-unit stacked townhouse, which will include 12 parking spaces, fencing around the entirety of the property, as well as a private amenity area outfitted with a pergola, as well as picnic tables. On the policy side of things, the subject lands are designated as residential in the county official plan and currently zoned residential R2 in the Wellington North zoning bylaw. Provincial policy seeks to promote growth within settlement areas, including a mix of housing types. The subject lands are located in stage 1 of the Wellington North Community Growth Plan and would contribute to the recommended 30 to 40% intensification target for Mount Forest. Planning staff note the proposal is consistent with the county official plan density target. And in terms of next steps, following the public meeting, staff will finalize a review of the proposed rezoning and the public and council's comments. And we'll report back to council at a later date with proposed revisions based on this afternoon's discussions and seek council consideration on the bylaw. And with that said, I know the planning consultants in attendance, so I won't take up any more time. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, not me either.
You can wait until we get into questions if that's.
Maybe I'll just do it. Sure. Thank you for having me, council. My name is Dana Kiefer. Actually a local girl, grew up just outside of Durham, so happy to be back in the Highway 6 corridor. Thank you for having me today. Matt did a great job going over the policies, so thank you, Matt, for all your work on the application. I thought I'd just give you a little bit of high level about the units themselves. They are 2-bed, 2-baths. They're proposed to be 1,120 square feet. They are a similar footprint to a 4-plex. Being a stacked townhome, what you're going to do is go up 8 steps or go down 8 steps. So they do use that space a little bit more effectively. They're only about 1.5 stories high. So you just get a little bit more units in a more compact space. They are targeting first-time home buyers and retirees and are proposed to be placed in a plan of condominium after this application, and they are constructed. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have at the right moment.
Any further correspondence for receiving this application?
Yes, we did receive an email from Darlene Wright on Friday, May 5th at 2:26, and she indicated that she will be attending by Zoom. And I'm not sure if the 905 phone number up there is Darlene, so I'm trying to give her permission to speak. If that is in fact Darlene. Marcus from Cachet had raised his hand, so he's been moved into the meeting. I believe you wanted to speak, Marcus, but the 905 phone number, is that Darlene Wright? You'll have to unmute. And Drew Nelson also has his hand up, so I will move him into the meeting. I can't hear you. Maybe we'll see what happens.
Okay. So no further correspondence
Except from Darlene.
except from Darlene. Okay. Okay, the bylaw for this application will be considered at a future council meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. And having said that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public.
So Marcus, I moved you in first. Did you have a comment or a question? Yeah, I don't know. You had his hand raised.
Hi there, Karen. Good afternoon, council. Into the meeting for my delegation
Okay, sorry, we're not
To
at that
speak
point
to
in
the
meeting
app-
yet.
Okay, do we have anybody else who wishes to speak to this application?
Drew, you had your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, it's Drew Nelson. So I live just right beside the property at 114 Church Street North. Answered the question about, I was wondering if there'd be fencing around it. So that got answered already. Couple other questions I had would be directly behind my home, there is a hedge currently right now for privacy. And then behind the home of, I believe it's 110 Church Street North, right on the corner. They've got a couple trees there. Just wondering if that greenery is going to be sort of kept or if that's going to be removed. And then just which way the units would be facing. Would they be facing the west with the driveway coming in along the west lot line? Or would they be facing the east with the driveway coming in the east lot line?
Okay. I think we're gonna get an answer here, Drew. Just hang on.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
The building will be oriented towards the, I'm thinking west, with a driveway coming in along the west. The greenery will be maintained as much as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Drew?
Just so if the driveway is coming in on the west, the fronts will be facing west. I guess just what the proposed minimum side yard would be on the east side of the property.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We are asking for a minimum side yard reduction from 6 meters to 5.1.
Did you hear that, Drew?
Yep, that's good with me. Those were my questions. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So this is the last opportunity if Darlene is participating by phone to unmute yourself and make your presentation. I have no other way of identifying you. All right.
Okay, we'll switch from questions, comments from the public to any questions or comments from council. Councillor McCabe, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, just a quick question. When it said there's a private amenity, will they kind of have like a little backyard fenced in as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The amenity space is proposed to be kind of located right in here. So it will be all fenced along the outside, but pergola, picnic tables, that kind of thing will be located there.
And each unit has front and back porches as well.
Yeah, okay.
Can you,
Thanks, Brad.
sorry, can you just repeat
Sure.
that so people? can hear?
Each unit has a front and back porch as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry. Any other questions, comments from council? Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I'm really happy that there's green space there. Quite often we see these proposed developments and there's no green space. So thank you for taking the time to put that in. And I also like the fact that there are a lot of the existing trees look like they're going to be kept. So that's a discussion we always have around this table as well, that we lose a lot of mature trees. My only concern is, again, the density. And I know we've talked a lot about growth, and it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of control with what can and can't happen, but there's a lot of density in that area, and I'd be amiss if I didn't just bring that up. The intensification in that sort of Wellington, King Street, London Road, Newfoundland Street is really high. And I think that it will be part of our job in the future to make sure that sidewalks are put in and the right amenities are there for the families that are moving in. But otherwise, I like the site plan sketch, and thank you for taking the time to put the effort into that.
Other questions, comments from council? Councillor Rankin, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I'm quite pleased with the design of the units as well. And I like the fact that it's only going to be 1.5 stories, so it's not going to be overly high for the rest of the neighborhood, which I don't think would suit it if you had gone to 2 stories. I'm just wondering, maybe my math is off. But with having the 8 units, are you a few feet over the limit in having 8 units rather than 7? Or can it fit in, the 8 units fit in within that half acre?
Yeah, so through you, Chair. So there is no, I'm not sure about the 8-unit maximum. In terms of the R3 zoning, you're permitted to have 6 in a row, if I'm not mistaken, and then you can have 1 above on basically in each unit as well, in terms of it being a stacked.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I would just comment that it's interesting to see a new housing type to some extent in our community. I'm not going to put the applicant on the spot, but my expectation is these will have a price point that will make it a little more affordable for lots of our residents who are starting out or those who are wishing to downsize, providing a more affordable alternative. So I think, sorry?
Anything within the price range.
Right. So I think from that perspective, this is really good, and that we know that there's a desperate need out there for people of modest income to find housing, and I think this is a good alternative. So look forward to seeing more about how this is going to work as we go forward. I know my exposure to stacked townhomes is far more what I see in larger urban centers. They tend to be almost 3 stories high. So this is a type I haven't personally witnessed before, so I'm looking forward to seeing what these look like. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we are going to be seeing this again later in terms of the zoning bylaw. So for that, we'll just adjourn this today, and then we'll come back to, I assume, any site revisions or anything like that will come to us prior to the bylaw or during the same time frame. Yep. Okay. So with that, I'll gotta get a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe, that the public meeting of May 8th, 2023 be adjourned at 2:27 PM. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And we'll move back to our regular council meeting. Recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the May 8th, 2023 regular meeting of council at 2:28 PM. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Hearn and Councillor Rankin. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're on to deputations. We have 2 this afternoon. And I saw Marcus already on the Zoom platform, so we have Marcus Gagliardi from Cachet Homes. So
I'm going to assume VED Homes is Scott Patterson, because you had indicated, oh, you're Scott, I'm sorry, you're Scott Patterson is in the audience. And then will I move VED Homes in as participants? Okay. Thank you.
okay, so Marcus, can you hear me okay?
Hello?
Marcus Gagliardi, are you with us? Marcus, are you with us? We're ready for your deputation.
Karen, I think I'm having some audio connection issues. I'm going to join again.
Yep.
Can't hear you very well.
Marcus, can you hear me? He disappeared.
It's right.
Okay. So everybody hang tight while we try to make the technology work for us for a change.
Okay, I'm gonna try and move you back in, Marcus. Okay, you should be prompt there now.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, Marcus. We've got you. So if you're,
Okay.
whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and apologies to council. I was having a little technical difficulties there. I'll make my deputation very quick. I know you guys have a busy afternoon. So just speaking to the vet homes item, the request or the ask that we're making of council and staff is really to consider either a zoning provision or a draft plan condition that speaks to vet homes entering into a cost sharing agreement with Cachet, some sort of best efforts clause. And again, we've been working amicably with vet homes. We actually have a meeting with them later on in the week to discuss cost sharing. And again, we support their application. We have nothing against the application from a planning perspective. Just when the Cachet application came forward, there was certain infrastructure, particularly the pond lands, as well as some of the infrastructure along Adelaide Street that was sized accordingly for the external developments, one of them being vet homes. So we just want to work with them over the next several weeks on a cost sharing agreement. And it's just important to us that that be secured through some sort of draft plan condition or a zoning provision that's implemented by staff or council. So that's really our only request. Again, if there's any questions from council, I'm happy to answer them. But again, no objections to the application. We're working very well with vet homes, and we just wanted that recognized in a condition so that it is on the record, so that we're holding each other accountable.
Thanks, Marcus. Any questions from council in regard to this presentation? I guess I have one, Marcus, and maybe I'm missing something here, but I'm struggling to understand why the township is being inserted into a deal between two private landowners here with this request.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's a great question, and I understand the question. So typically, a cost sharing arrangement or a cost sharing agreement is normally done early on in the development stage, and you see these type of agreements or arrangements sometimes in larger developments that maybe require a secondary plan or some sort of block planning. And at that point, all of the landowners get together. They execute cost sharing principles, and then they enter into a cost sharing agreement. And they do that so that the development is moving forward collectively and together. In this particular case, Cachet was essentially through the planning process and had pretty much serviced our entire site before Vet Homes came forward with an application. So all of the things that you would expect to cost share were already taken care of. But they were taken care of knowing full well that future development was coming on board. Now, the reason why we're asking that the condition be put in through the township or through the county is so that there is something on record that requires Vet Homes to sit at the table with Cachet to enter into that agreement. If there isn't, and we are working amicably, we're having meetings, we're having our meeting on Thursday this week. But if for whatever reason things do not work out, there's nothing legally tying Vet Homes to entering into an agreement with us, if that makes any sense. So putting a commercial best efforts clause into the draft plan conditions at least gives Cachet and Vet Homes something that they're going to both hold each other accountable to. Without it, then other mechanisms are required to be used sometimes, which I don't need to go on to here, but having the draft plan condition is just really the easiest way to keep the two parties at the table, if that makes any sense.
Okay, Thank you. I think I understand the cachet perspective on this. I'm just very hesitant to ask the township to step in between two private property owners negotiations or dispute. Maybe this isn't a dispute. That might not be the right word, but dealings, I guess, is where I struggle with this. I mean, maybe staff can provide a background of where this might be appropriate or not. Sorry to put you on the spot, Matthew, but can you comment on this?
I shut the mic off, so you have to turn on again.
Sure. So through you, Chair, at this stage, I don't know how much we can really add at this meeting, but you know, we certainly heard Marcus's presentation and you know, we're working through drafting conditions for the draft plan. So through that process, whether we do or not, I think we'll chat internally with staff as well as county and then, you know, move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McCabe, did
Quick
you?
question. So say things went south between VED and Cachet, then where does that leave the township?
Through you, Chair, that's an excellent question. And I suppose that's where Marcus was leading to that, you know, I imagine that lawyers would be involved, things of that nature. Don't quote me, but that's, you know, I think that's a route that it would take between developers is my take.
So then can I follow up with another? So then who would be on the hook for our lawyers if we had to get involved with it?
Well, ultimately, we are the one who pays our
That's
consultants,
what I thought. Okay,
unless a settlement says otherwise.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any other questions. Oh, you have your hand up, Marcus. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again for council, and I apologies for jumping in. Cachet has no objection to the development itself. We're fully supportive of their application. We agree with the planning of the application. This is just one, we'll say one component of the development that we just wanted recognized in a draft plan condition to Matthew's point. So yeah, again, our intent is not to hold anything up or delay anything. It's just a matter of putting it on the record. So we're working together and holding each other accountable. Again, nothing against the development and not trying to hold anything up here.
Thank you. So I don't think we have any other questions. So thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to Scott Patterson. Welcome, Scott. Is the mic on there?
The mic should be on. Is it green?
Yes. So good afternoon, council and staff. My name is Scott Patterson with Patterson Planning Consultants. My presentation is also very brief here today in full support of the staff report and recommendation. I'd like to thank Marcus for his comments. I would say that through a zoning bylaw amendment, the implementation of a holding provision for a cost sharing agreement is not normal. That's atypical. But a condition in a draft approval regarding cost sharing or a best efforts, as Marcus called it, that is something we would entertain. And as he noted, we are meeting this week to have a discussion further about cost sharing efforts and things. Relationship between the two developers right now are very good. And we've discussed things on our end. So I think there is a positive effort to move that forward. And that's hopefully something we don't have to come back and discuss in front of council ever again. But as a draft approval condition, that's something we would consider and support at that time.
Questions or comments for Scott?
Okay, thank you.
So we'll move on to our adoption of minutes of council and public meeting. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April 17th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councilor McCabe and Councilor Burke, thank you. Any questions or comments on those? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to items for consideration because I don't think we have anything under the business arising from previous meetings. Anything you'd like to pull out for further discussion? I have a list here actually that we do need to pull out. So we need 8C, which is the appointments for the annual meeting for Wellington North Power. 2F. Well, yeah, we probably should pull 2F, 8D. And bylaw 32-23, because they all relate to the BED application. Yeah, and we also should pull bylaw 33-23. As it's labeled wrong, it should be a land purchase, not a land sale. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a few as well. I think you mentioned 2D.
2D.
I'd like to have just a quick question about 2E. And then 2H. 5A, the fire report. 6B. 6C. 7B. 2A.
2A. So we're going back.
Sorry, 8A, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, 8A, sorry. You already said 8C. And 8D. They're very quick questions.
And 1-5 over.
Other ones to pull out. Councilor Burke, go ahead.
So 2A and G need to be pulled for
Oh,
my disclosure.
okay, thank you.
And I think 5A has already been pulled, but I think I might have missed that on Councillor McCabe's list. 6A,
We received a payment back.
6A hasn't been pulled yet.
I'd like to pull that as well.
And give yourself on the meeting.
Any others? Anybody has? 2A, I think we got, yes. So, you guys are happy?
There's nothing.
Okay. Just let me go through that. I just thought there was one that I had missed too. But yeah, we've got pretty much everything. Okay. So we'll deal with all the others. The recommendation here that all items listed under items for consideration on the May 8th, 2023 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Okay, to mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Hearn and Councillor Rankin, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back to 2A. What was the other one? 2G, Sherry? So what I'll maybe do is pull G forward and we'll deal with the two together and make it easier. So we have item 2A. This is the consent application B26-23 and B27-23 for Terrence Martin. There's a lengthy recommendation here that I hope council doesn't ask me to read it all. But could I get a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Councillor McCabe. Councillor Rankin, thank you. Any discussion on that one? Councillor Rankin, go ahead.
I just had a question. I have no problem with the proposal. I was just wondering when the sidewalk is being proposed to build on the east side from Princess Street to Waterloo in the near future. I was just wondering if they would be waiting until this building was complete, so you're not digging up a new sidewalk when that building is going in.
That's a good question. Because, yeah, do we know what the contract timing is for that project? This 2A and it, and how it relates to the Cork Street reconstruction, because there's sidewalk to go in with that reconstruction project. Like, we're just at the consent stage. It's 26 and 27, yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, through you, Chair. I don't believe they've noted any kind of timeline, and I only know this because I had the pre-consult meeting with them originally. I do know in terms of services, the township is anticipating a servicing upgrade on that street. And they are hoping to time that with the construction of the build, to ultimately, they're gonna dig up the road and service it all in one go rather than do it twice. So I do know the Martins are working in conjunction with township staff on that degree. So I imagine in terms of the sidewalk conversation, that'll probably align with that as well.
Because there'll be curb cut downs and those types of things to deal with as well. Tammy, did you have your hand up?
Hi, through you, Mayor. I was just going to say as well, it's unknown for the timing of the house construction. So at the moment, the sidewalk will be put in part of the Cork Street reconstruction project. And then at the time of the house construction, they'll have to cut down the driveways and reinstall that sidewalk as well along the driveway portion.
But that would be at the developer's expense, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Any other questions in regard to this consent application? Okay. All those in favor then? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move to 2G. Sorry to jump around to just G, because that's the other one that Sherry has.
Yep.
And this is in regard to the Sunvale Homes draft plan of subdivision. So the recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report DC 2023-19 being a report on John Welton Custom Home Building Limited, owner and operated as Sunvale Homes, draft plan of subdivision 23T-20203, located south of Princess Street and west of Cork Street in the town of Mount Forest. And further, the Council of the Township of Wellington North assigns the following street names for subdivision 23T-20203. As Street A, Carnegie Road, Street B, Challoner Street, and Street C, Yeomans Street. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any questions or comments on that? Not seeing any. I was encouraged to see such historical names being chosen. I am always in favor of that, so I think that's great. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm since I'm mixing things up here, let's just let's mix it up thoroughly here. We've got VED Homes staff and consultants sitting here, so why don't we just pull that forward? So that's the 2F report, the 8D correspondence, and then of course bylaw 32-23. So let's deal with 2F first, if council is okay with that. And the recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the planning report dated May 8th, 2023, prepared by Matthew Daou, Senior Planner, County of Wellington, regarding part of Park Lot 3, south of Donville Street, the Arthur zoning bylaw amendment for VED homes. Okay, a mover and a seconder for that, please. I'll move by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. Any discussion on that one? Okay, I would like to add that I was pleased to see the alteration on the one block to reduce the density a little bit and create some more space around the front yards there. So I think that's a very positive step forward, and I look forward to seeing this proceed. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move to it's 8D. This is the correspondence, so this is just to receive the correspondence. So the recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the correspondence dated April 26, 2023 from concerned residents of Arthur regarding draft plan of subdivision and zoning amendment to the comprehensive bylaw 66-01 for part of Park Lot 3 south of Donville Street, BED homes. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Rankin. Any questions or comments on that one? Councilor McCabe.
Yeah, I guess I would like to, I have asked to have this pulled as well. I just want to make sure that the residents there and the new, or the neighbors to the new VED subdivision are like their questions and concerns are going to be answered.
Sorry, Councilor McCabe, I'm just, are you looking for staff?
Probably or an answer from, I guess, to make sure that their concerns are going to be addressed
With
from the
regard
letter.
to the
from the
drainage
recording.
and fencing and those
Yeah,
types of
their
things.
fencing and like they're not opposed to the plan, of course, but just what they're concerned about is going to get looked after.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So I did have the opportunity to speak to one of the residents on that list that did send the circulation through and basically went step by step, you know, answered all the questions that she had. And at the end of the conversation, she was quite pleased with all the answers and just reiterated, you know, Councillor McCabe's points that, you know, we just want to make sure the neighboring residents are heard. But we're satisfied with all the concerns related around drainage and, you know, density and things of that nature. So based on that phone conversation, it sounded very constructive and ultimately supportive at the end of the day. But certainly, you know, as I mentioned to her, a lot of these items will be dealt with at site plan and sort of later throughout the stage. As it relates to drainage and, you know, things like fencing and
Yep.
things of that nature.
Okay. Good,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Often residents don't know how our process works and and certainly these are concerns that we hear loud and clear and are try to be on top of, but it's good to be reminded of them again. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add in regard to any of that?
Just that I've been in contact with one of the neighbors as well at 303 Donville about her drainage.
On,
So
only because the people on the Zoom call can't hear you if you don't speak.
it's green light. Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, I have been in contact with the owner of 303 Donville as well. Just about the drainage issues and things in their backyard. So we are in contact, and as we move through the process, we hope to deal with all the concerns from the neighbors as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So now we'll flip right to the bylaws. I'm really jumping around, keeping you guys guessing. If I can find the right thing here. Yeah. Okay, so this is 32-23. So this is item C and
Sorry.
item C in the bylaws. So the recommendation will be that bylaw number 32-23 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. Any questions or comments at this stage? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. So we'll switch back to 2. B, D, thank you. This is in regard to consent application B 32-23 for Karen Martin. Again, we have a lengthy recommendation as we always do with consents. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that one, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Questions or comments in regard to that consent application? For Karen Martin, 32-23, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, just I guess kind of 2D and E kind of go together. So this is just a straight lot line adjustment between the two.
Matthew will help us.
Yeah.
So through you, Chair, it's a bit of a two-part. So as you mentioned, there's 2 applications. So the first would be to sever, let's call it the front first portion of the property.
Yep.
Which would be a severance, and then stage 2, which would be the second 33, would be a lot line adjustment from the rear to the front. So basically picture this would be a property, this one as well as this. one.
Okay. All right, that's kind of what I thought, but it just wasn't too sure.
Yeah, no, it's.
Two-parter, so. Okay, no,
They're kind of contingent on each other, which makes it hard to figure out which one comes first.
great. Okay, thank you. No, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Move on to 2E. No, do we need that one too? I guess we did pull
We
it.
kind of did it.
So yeah, this is the second part of the same story. So could I get a mover and a seconder for this one recommendation, please? Counselor Burke, Counselor McCabe, any questions or comments on this one?
My question was asked, or answered in the last question.
Thanks,
so.
Counselor McCabe.
Yeah.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. F and G, we've already dealt with. Let's deal with item H. This is the site plan agreement, Wellington Road 12 for the County of Wellington. Recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive for information report DC 2023-20 regarding the final approval of the County of Wellington Site Plan Control Agreement. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Discussion, Councillor McCabe.
I guess this is probably my last kick at the can. I still want to voice my opposition to this and pulling Prime Ag out when there was better locations within the town of Arthur proper instead of taking this land out.
Okay. Just a reminder that this is just receiving for information today. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're on to 5A. So regard to the fire report. The recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the Wellington North Fire 2022 annual report. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Rankin. And before I ask for discussion, I see the chief is here to address the crowd, so I'll turn it over to him.
Takes a lot to get me in uniform, so I like for my annual report to come like this, but yeah. Everybody got a copy of the annual report. Talking with Brooke, this is kind of our annual report and orientation all wrapped into one, so I don't have to bore you again in another session. But in this, I just want to highlight some of the items in there. As of last week, our management team is finally back to full capacity. Cleese is back off maternity leave, so we had the three of us are now finally in full swing. And I should point out that Marco and Cleese are both on the Zoom call here to raise their hand when I screw up on anything. Just the employee overview. We have employees going back and forth all the time. We're hiring. We just hired 6 brand new firefighters that are just in recruit class right now. And we're looking for more firefighters for the Arthur station to start a recruit class in July. So we're always recruiting to try and keep our membership up and try and get to where we want to be, which is 25 and 25 at each station. So that's what we're looking for. Highlights, we continue to implement the new software systems. Just on that, when we started back in 2020 with this partnership, we didn't have any software systems. So we're just implementing new software systems to get us going and start collecting data, which you'll be able to see in a second. So that's been a huge project and moving that forward because everything to do with fire services, which I'll explain in a little bit now, is data analytics. Even if you're volunteer department, they want to know data, like how does your data affect your call volume? How does it affect your your staffing, your level of service and that kind of stuff. So that's very, very important that we start collecting that. And we're starting to receive some good data from that. We're prepared for the mandatory certification of all fire personnel. So since the past 5 to 6 years, all of our recruits coming out are fully certified. They go through the county training system. And when they're done, they write the exams and there's 4 exams total. By the time they've done the 4 exams, they're a fully certified firefighter. Same as a firefighter in the city of Toronto, city of Cambridge, any of the city firefighters. That's the new mandatory standard that we have to meet by July of 2026. We're well on our way to that, but we do have some work to do to keep that going. The other part of that is whatever job you perform on the fire department, for example, if you're a captain, a training officer, public education officer, anything like that, you have to be fully certified to that level to be able to perform that service for the fire department. So again, we've got a lot of courses coming up in the county. We have a lot of people that have taken courses, and we're working extremely hard to try and get those courses to us locally that we can train the firefighters and have them certified in that. And we are well on our way to that, but it's still going to be a work in progress till we hit that deadline. The Firefighters Association's activities are starting to ramp up. That's beyond me. That's the association, and they're starting to, now that that event that happened for 3 years that we don't talk about, it's coming to an end. They're able to get out and start doing more with their firefighter breakfasts and stuff like that you saw last year. And last year we hosted our first annual firefighter awards night, which was a very well received. The firefighters were recognized for their years of service. We had one at 30 years and we had two at 20 years that we recognized. So it's very important, I believe, that we recognize long service in a way in that method, because they dedicate this time in addition to their full-time jobs, as you know. So to give them a little bit of recognition is very important to make sure that they are seen that way. 2022 incident statistics, I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but you can see in the chart, they were up last year. I don't get too excited about that. I like to look at 3 to 5 year trends, because this year now our calls are somewhat stabilizing, and I will say down for now, but I don't like jinxing things till the end of the year. But we do a 3 to 5 year comparison, and then that gives us good data, not just 1 year's off. But for last year, they were up. There was many reasons for that. One of the reasons was our medical calls were up because of offload delays that we're seeing in the paramedic world. We talked amongst the firefighters and the officers, and we continue to offer that level of service because we believe that's important to our community, that if the paramedics are held up, it still is important that somebody gets there to help the community. So that's what you've seen there. I put in a new chart that you hadn't seen before with call volumes. It just indicates by hour of the day and then day of the week. So it kind of gives you an idea of when our calls, and you can see that the graph shows that most of our calls are midday between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. is kind of when our calls spike. And the weekends still remain to be our busiest, but there are significant calls during the week. So it kind of gives you that idea. Fire prevention and enforcement. We are working on that. Marco has been doing a bang up job on that. He's been dealing a lot of hours with a lot of different hoarding cases and different properties. They're not property standards, but for fire issues that are involved in property standard cases. So he's been doing a lot of that. Our level of service for fire inspections is request and complaint only right now. We do not have any proactive fire prevention activities because quite frankly, we just don't have the capacity right now. Now that's something that we're going to bring back to you in the future. We are mandated by July 2025 to bring to you an enhanced community risk assessment. And what that does is it looks at 8 different pillars. And we look at all these different things in these pillars that tell us what are the biggest risks for our community. And we put that together in a document and we bring it back to council to approve and to see. And then once you see in there that these are our highest risks because of the data and because of the risk factors that we've identified, then that's when you as council and us as the fire service work together to offer what services does the fire department need to offer the community. And that's what we come back to you with. So for example, if we identify the highest risk in Wellington North is water, we have somehow Lake Michigan or Lake Ontario got transferred here, that's our biggest risk. Then the council would decide, do we put a water rescue team together to offer that service to our community, or do we contract that out to somebody else? So that's what the document will show us. What is our greatest risk, backed up by data and backed up by building stock and that type of thing, and demographics and that type of thing. And then we pick what level of service do we want our fire department to increase to, or some instances, what do you want to decrease it to? But that's how we do that. So that'll be a document that's coming in 2025, if not before, if we can get it done before. And then we will go through that exercise with council to pick what is their best level of service. Public education activities, again, starting to ramp up. Now that police is back, and we're going to start working with the firefighters and some different programs that are coming out. It seems like everybody's waking up now, and the fire marshal's office has some more programs that they're starting to come forward with to help us out. So you're going to see that. I talked about the training and the mandatory certification. And then in 2023 and beyond, this year we're replacing our self-contained breathing apparatus. We have what are called 2216 bottles, but they're half-hour bottles. The new standard is 45-minute bottles, so 4,500 PSI in the bottles. So that means we have to upgrade all of our packs, all of our bottles, and our air filling station to meet that new standard. So we're working with not only Minto, but other fire departments around to bundle that purchase so that we can buy a huge lot of whichever pack we pick. And then we will get that purchase completed. We will continue to implement software because that is the one thing that's constant, is the change in the software programs that we need to keep up on. A big part of what we're going to do is work through the recommendations of the fire service review that everybody has been partaking in, and talking with Brooke. We expect that probably the beginning of June. And once that common council gets it, you know, there will be direction in that we'll have to work through the recommendations of that. And lastly, the big thing in 2023 and beyond is to work towards finalizing and hopefully finalizing and getting plans together for a new Mount Forest fire station. We have outgrown that fire station. We are literally busting at the seams. We do not have showering facilities in there for decontamination purposes. Our bunker gear rooms way too crowded. There's numerous issues that site, that building is just, we're growing too big for it right now. And with growth in the community comes growth in other areas. And unfortunately for us, that means growing the fire department in a way too. So that's one thing that we're going to work with council on, to get some plans together and work together to see what we can do to solve that problem. So that is my annual report, and kind of a quick and dirty orientation. But the biggest thing I want to talk about was how the level of service is picked and determined for fire departments. And it's done through data and through community risk assessment, which again, we are in the process of rewriting and updating it. So, all right.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions, comments? Councilor Burke?
I have some comments. So thank you, Chief Harrow, for the report. Glad to hear that we are actively recruiting. Just a question around that. How do we get that word out that we're looking for volunteers? Because I just wonder, I know there's some struggles with numbers during the day sometimes, and how do we get more local people to become a part of the organization?
That's a great question. And there has been a lot of seminars and research gone into that, and people way smarter than me still haven't figured out how we can determine to do that. I think the biggest thing is word of mouth from the existing firefighters to get out in the community and tell everybody that, you know, to come join the organization, to become firefighters, and that it's tough. We're no different than the Lions Club, than the Rotary Club, and that people just don't have as much spare time after work anymore. So it's really, really tough to do that. And we're the same as almost every fire department in Ontario, that we have recruiting problems that we're trying to constantly rectify. And I was at a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and there is a lot of collaboration talks because other municipalities are having the same problem. So it's paging more stations just to get enough recruits, and they're paging 3 and 4 stations from like all their neighbors to work together to get enough complement there, because they're having the same problems. And you can hire, and you know, I've seen it in my 17 years as a chief, that we have really good daytime response. We have 10, 12 people, and then next year people relocate jobs and we're down to 3 the next year. So it's such an inexact science to try and to recruit that's a really tough question. But we're constantly talking to neighbors for best practices. I know Marco was just at a seminar last week on that recruitment retention and what we can do to hopefully improve that, but there's no concrete answer, which is really too bad.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple more if I can.
Absolutely,
continue.
go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you for keeping you know, everything we've gone through, keeping training going, because that's really important for our volunteers. And a comment with regards to your fire service awards. glad that we're recognizing those folks, but would just maybe ask if you would extend that invitation to council so that we could be a part of those proud moments for our community. And also lastly, when we talk about the new fire station, are we talking about a complete new location, or are we giving considerations to how we may be able to modify that building?
Absolutely. We're looking at all scenarios, and that's a great question. I've talked to Dale Clark. I talked to Matt when he's here, that we're really looking at what's the best to solve the public works problem there and the fire. And we have looked at, and Public Works has said that that space would work for them. If they took the fire hall to park some trucks inside, a lunchroom, washroom facility for them, because they don't have the same decontamination problems that we have, that would work for them. And I gave them a classroom space to have their courses. That would enable us maybe then to go somewhere else offsite. The issue that we're having, and we just talked many different public meetings about, is finding land within Mount Forest to do that is extremely tough. We've gone down a couple roads to make inquiries, and land's quickly sold. So we're looking at all options, and my goal would be to do the drawings so we kind of know what size of lot we would need, and then bring options back to council to say we could do this here, this here, this here, and hopefully give you 2 or 3 options to help us decide. It's just trying to find the first option to start with to go to the second or third, because there's never been land designated that we can just jump on in Mount Forest, and that's tough. So, but we will continue to work with that for sure. And we are in conversation with Public Works to see what's best for both of us to work together on this for sure.
Any other questions or comments? So not so fast, Chris.
I was that close, that close.
I'll try not to be too hard on you.
Oh, that's great.
So you talked about the thing that is one of the questions I have, and that's around the paramedic offload delays piece. And I know that City of Guelph and the county have been working towards getting a nurse, particularly at Guelph General, that will help to speed that up. But we will be meeting with the City of Guelph with regard to their ambulance service here coming up the end of the month or the beginning of next month. Is there any message that I can bring on behalf of the fire department to help us work toward a solution to that problem?
Honestly, no. I'm in constant contact with Chief Dewar and the EMS, and we've worked on numerous solutions in that together. Our tiered response agreement that council agreed to it's a 20-minute delay provision in there. So there's only a handful of calls that we go right away to. And then there's a 20-minute delay provision there that if the ambulance is going to be delayed more than 20 minutes, that's when they send us. And that's where we were seeing a lot of calls last year, which to me is a significant delay for ambulance, which they could not control. And I absolutely see that. And we felt bad, but that's where our call. So by doing the work that you talked about they're doing, we've seen that delay decrease, that there's fewer and fewer calls that we're monitoring that 20-minute delay kicks in. So they are doing something really well this year that it's decreasing that for us. So yeah, okay, for sure. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
See, I told you it wasn't too hard.
Oh, I thought you had a list. I was getting ready for the list.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to 6A. This is a report in regard to the Cork Street reconstruction project. Recommendation is that the Council of Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report Ops 2023-17, being a report on the award of the Cork Street reconstruction project. And further, the council award the request for tender contract 14056 to Lavis Contracting Company Limited at a cost of $853,379.70 plus applicable taxes. And further, the council directs staff to increase the budget associated with this project by $87,298.38. And further, the council authorized the mayor and or clerk to sign any necessary agreements with successful bidders to execute this project. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. Open the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Burke.
That would be for me. That would be me. So my question is, this was a project that we approved outside of the budget, and it's the first tender, if you will, that's coming back for the 2023 budget. And my question is more of a general question because I do understand the significance of this project, having this project done. But how do we, from projects from budget to tender, seem like they continue to exceed the projected budget? What steps can we take to improve the budgeting to tender process? Because I suspect that if this one is, I mean, I hate to be negative, but if this one is over significantly, where does that leave us with the rest of our numbers for specifically road projects?
Brooke, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lennox, thank you. Yes, we were anticipating that there might be some challenges this year in terms of cost overruns or additional costs that some of these projects related to our capital program could incur. And I would say that part of our approach is going to be to do sort of in-year monitoring and analysis and be able to bring back more of a status update on those various capital projects before our next budget process. So we're looking at doing an update report on all of our capital projects in the summer so that we can bring that information back to council and we can kind of give you a sense of where things are at. And if we do need to adjust, we have time to adjust. You know, I think it's important. We want to be transparent about the costs, which is why we are bringing this back at this time. But you're right, we're going to need to look at that, and I would say evaluate and monitor so that when we're bringing our next budget forward and our capital estimates, that we can take into account sort of where things are landing and if that's going to impact next year's budget as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would just add too that certainly the staff recommendation that we have a contingency fund for these capital projects during the budget process looks like it was the right decision to make. So unfortunately, we don't like to receive these. At least we're equipped to be able to handle it. So thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 6B. This is in regard to the Mount Forest Ag Society update. The recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report Ops 2023-19 Mount Forest Agricultural Society update, being a report on the lease agreement between the Township of Wellington North and the Mount Forest Agricultural Society. And further, the council accepts the letter of cancellation between the Township of Wellington North and the Mount Forest Agricultural Society. And further, the council directs staff to develop a plan related to the future use of this site and associated structures, which includes 2 agricultural barns, bleachers, and an announcer stand. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor McCabe, Councillor Burke, thank you. Open the floor, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lennox. This was this issue was one of the only ones that was going to come to our last rec meeting, and that was the only thing on the agenda. So that's why it got pushed onto this council agenda for today. And I can't see doing anything else with them except for using it for our own storage. I know we always seem to run out of storage for our municipal equipment, so I'm not really in favor of sole sourcing this to have one particular company able to access it, even if it is for a charge. I'd rather leave them open, well, leave them for municipal use only.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that thank you for the report. And I know that the Mount Forest Ag Society has been struggling for a few years now, and it's always kind of sad to see those long time associations disband. So sad to see that happen, and I look forward to sort of the recommendations as to what can be done with the parcel of land, hoping that it will still continue to be some type of community space.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councillor Rankin.
I'd just like to say that I agree with Councillor Burke. I think they should be utilized for our township, and and to be enjoyed by the public, that we can make use of them somehow rather than sell them off.
Other questions, comments? That certainly is sad to see the end of a very long era with the Mount Forest Agricultural Society, but understand this position they're in and look forward to what we can dream up to utilize the resources that we have there. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the standpipe update, and the recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report ops 2023-18, being a report regarding a Mount Forest standpipe update, and further the Council of the Township of Wellington North approve the final design for the Mount Forest standpipe as outlined in Appendix B, and further the Council of the Township of Wellington North approve the implementation of the Stage 2 water supply emergency restrictions in Mount Forest as outlined in bylaw 93-16, Schedule 1, Section 12.2. And further that the Council of the Township of Wellington North directs staff to undertake a communication and education program to help residents understand how they can support this community initiative. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councilor Burke, seconded by Councilor Rankin. Open the floor for discussion, questions, comments. Councilor McCabe.
I'm just excited to see this going. It's amazing to see when you drive up to Mount Forest what it looks like now. And looking forward to seeing the end result. And hoping that there's not too much disruption with water services in Mount Forest while we go forward. So I haven't heard of any yet. So that's a great sign. So just want to shout out to what has been done already, and looking forward to seeing it done.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Councilor Burke.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Corey for including in his report the piece about the healthy and happy. That's going to significantly reduce my calls and emails. So thank you for that. Because as we know, the Mount Forest community is very strong, has some very strong feelings with regards to that verbiage. My question is, Corey, and maybe it's in the report. I had a hard time seeing getting some of those I think those timeline graphs. What is the time frame surrounding when the tank on the standpipe will be drained that will bring in the Stage 2 water supply restrictions?
Go ahead, Corey.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Lennox. So right now on schedule, very much on schedule, maybe even a little bit ahead, which is great. The schedule does show that we will have the tank drained prior to the May long weekend. So it's looking more and more like it will not be drained this week, which is something that we had previously considered, but probably by early next week to midweek, we'll be going through that draining process, and the tower will officially be out of service. Currently, there's still water in it, and it is still in full service at this point, but probably by mid next week, we'll be going through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just had a comment when the high, healthy, happy thing was mentioned, our 2 new interns. Amy, you may need to explain to them what that's all about. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? And Amy, I trust you explained that was prior to cannabis legalization. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 7B, the electoral ward update. The recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report CLK 2023-14, being a report on Wellington North electoral ward update, and further that staff review the ward populations after the 2026 municipal election to make a determination if a boundary review is warranted. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Rankin, and we'll open the floor for questions or comments. Councilor McCabe.
Sorry, just have a quick one, I guess, for you, Karen. Is there a time limit on this, or is this something that is provincially regulated, or this is just more of a rep by population kind of a
So the-
suggestion, or?
No, so it's up to a municipality or a county if they want to do a ward boundary review. But the legislation and regulations are provided for in time limits. So if we decided we wanted it in place for the 2026 election, everything has to be done, the appeal period, the going to the LPAT or whatever we're calling it today, in case someone appeals it, has to be done by December 31st of 2025. So if that's if we were gonna do it for 2026, we need to get started pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would just add a comment myself, and that is understand, the ward boundaries were created at the time of amalgamation, and the divisions and so on made sense at that point. But as our community changes, and I often hear comments about, well, decisions are made for one community versus another, as opposed to for the township as a whole. And I'd really like to see us move away from wards that are defined north and south to something that's more inclusive of our entire community. I'm not sure what that looks like. I have had thoughts about dropping to two wards with two councillors elected in each. But I do think that, if we're going to provide leadership to the community and represent the community as a whole, our electoral system should reflect that as well. And whatever that looks like, I'm not sure. I do think the time is come to start addressing some of that issue. We've had this, issue that's been with us since amalgamation about, the rivalry between communities and decision making. And I think we have a duty to take leadership in that regard, to set a different tone and try to make sure that our the members of the public that we represent have confidence in that approach. Councillor McCabe.
Are you, instead of I guess north, south, are you thinking more east, west, or what's your initial thoughts? Just so
Well,
we can start thinking of it too.
So my gut feeling was drop to two wards, divided
Like
east
right
and
down
west
Highway 6.
as
basically.
a possibility. The more I think about that, I'm not sure that wards are even beneficial in that context. That was my first gut feel, but I'm not trying to direct it. I just do think we need to address the issue. It's kind of an issue that is not openly talked about, but I think
needs to be
talked about.
So to your point, Mayor Lennox, it never occurred to me reduce to two wards with two elected officials. I mean, I can bring a report back to show how the numbers would work if we divided it north, south, or east, west along Highway 6 and whatever our north, south would be. The other option, of course, is to go just at large.
At large.
Yeah. Councillor Burke, you had your hand up.
That was what Karen sort of took the words right out of my mouth. I've heard from a lot of folks that what we have is sort of dated, and a lot of folks would like to see it more at large as opposed to a ward system. I can see that there are some benefits to a ward system. As we are elected officials, we should be looking at the community as a whole, not just as our specific ward. But it at large system also has its challenges as well. So I think for me, if we're going to look at it, I think we need to look at all of the options. And as the community grows, I know what my schedule looks like, and I'm pretty sure I know what most of everybody else's schedule looks like. Dare I say, maybe there's an opportunity where as the community continues to grow, that we need to increase the number of seats that are a part of Wellington North Council.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Rankin?
Thank you, Mayor Lennox. I think a two-ward, if when you're splitting it east and west, so you would definitely have a north and south, would definitely enhance that notion of north and south in the township, which I don't think is all that healthy. On the other hand, with the new people coming in with all our new subdivisions and so forth, I would hope in the future that stigma would decrease, because when new people come in, they don't have a sense of north or south. They're just in Wellington North. But yes, and I agree with Councillor Burke, definite challenges if we go to having it at large with the placement of where the councillors may be. So, but I'm sorry, I don't like anything that goes north and south.
No, I was not in favor of continuing to define the north versus the south. I think something that breaks down that boundary is the goal, whether that be at large or a different electoral ward map. No, don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to go there at all. So I think it's trying to break down the barriers as opposed to build them up. So I mean, we have a recommendation in front of us that suggests we continue on as we do. Do we wish to look at this any further? Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a quick peek at that if kind of what Karen has suggested. Excuse me. And then just when I see table 2 here with the 2022 electors, and it's a little over 8,300. Do we have the numbers for what it would look like in 2030, or could we get those as well? Like just the projections?
Where are you seeing?
So like so that.
Okay, so here's the problem. I can tell you based on our upcoming sort of what's in the pipe, Tammy, Pringle and Darren have done a really good job of projecting the houses.
Right.
What I don't know is how many electors are going to be in each house. So if you build a standalone single family resident, probably there's only going to be 2 electors in there because there'll be kids. It's harder to put a number on the electors until they're enumerated. What I can give you is a projection of the number of properties. Let's say they were, a duplex or seniors housing. Definitely there was only going to be 1 or 2. So it's harder to put that number. It's going to be more than 8,300.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. I just can't tell you. I can maybe give you a projection on the population. I just can't break it down into the wards.
Yeah, I can't predict the future, of course,
So
but
like-
no, just some sort of numbers.
That's changing every day, the province and the road.
Good luck.
Yeah. But I would suggest if you want me to bring another report back, that you do a friendly amendment to this resolution where you just receive this for information. Take out and further that staff review the ward populations after the 2026 election. Just leave that out and carry the motion, and then staff were directed to bring back further options to a future meeting of council. Based on a ward system, based on a east-west split ward with additional elected officials. And I will try and include a projected population increase.
Sure.
I just can't get it broken down by
Yep.
wards.
I think I moved that, so I'm all right with that friendly amendment.
Okay.
Penny seconded it.
Are you fine with that change? Okay. And then, so if we could maybe provide some background in that report to Karen, I know that Mapleton and Minto both started out with ward systems as well, and they went to at large, and if there's talk about their experience with it as well and other communities around us, I think that would be helpful to provide some context.
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you.
So as amended, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So moving on to 8A, this is regard to the resolution from Sault Ste. Marie regarding the support for Bill 5, and the recommendation is as follows: that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the resolution dated February 21st, 2023 from Sault Ste. Marie regarding the support for Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act. I get a mover and seconder for that. Councillor McCabe, Councillor Burke. Any questions or comments on that one? Councillor McCabe?
Bill 5 is stronger on the table for the last provincial election last June, and wanted to kickstart this again. And there's a number of different kind of municipalities that have signed up to keep this going, and it's carried further under the province and making that this event.
Any other questions, comments?
So procedurally, right now, the recommendation is just to receive it. If you would like to support it, I would suggest that you add the following clauses. And further, that council endorse their support for Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act, and carry that, and that staff be directed to circulate to the appropriate ministries.
I'd be all right with that. Yep.
Okay, seeing lots of nods. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? Before I call the vote on that, I would also just like to say how grateful I am to work with a group of people like we have here who treat everybody else with respect. And it makes it so much more pleasant for everybody. So thank you all for what you do and do so well. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to the correspondence from Wellington North Power, and the recommendation here is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive correspondence dated April 26, 2023 regarding the 2023 annual shareholder meeting, and further that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North appoint the following persons representing the Township of Wellington North at the Wellington North Power annual shareholder meeting to be held May 30th, 2023. And we do need to name who those people are. So first of all, can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Rankin. And do we have any volunteers?
Well, I guess I can go on it.
Councillor McCabe, Councillor Hearn.
I would. Sorry, I would volunteer, but we also have an aquatics meeting at 7 o'clock that evening. So I will be there, but I have to leave.
Okay, well, I don't think we have to have 3, but
Well, I can be there and I just won't volunteer to be the scrutineer.
okay. And of course, everybody's welcome to attend.
Yes.
Okay. So this is going to read Councillor McCabe, Councillor Hearn, Councillor Burke. Is that the way I understand it? And of course, Councillor Rankin, you're welcome to attend as well. Unless you want to volunteer and bump Sherry.
Meeting Sherry.
Proxy.
Okay, any other questions or comments in regard to this? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We've dealt with the D item there. I think that brings us to the end of our list. So any notice of motion this afternoon? Okay. Community group meeting program report. Anybody have anything they'd like to report on this afternoon? Councillor McCabe.
Sure. Thank you. And through you, we had an executive meeting with the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority last Friday that will be pushed to our upcoming SVCA meeting for this Thursday. And then I did not make it to the Wellington County Farm Safety, which was 2 weeks ago. I was already had plans that night. And then I have a Roma meeting this Friday, May 12th.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Burke.
Yeah. So just a bit of an update with regards to the Mount Forest Community Garden. Last week, the Committee for Community Engagement had a meeting just to go over the design of the garden, which may need to be revamped a little bit because the applications for individual plots is, I think, more than they had anticipated. So that's great news. They're still looking for volunteers of all skill sets. If you know how to run a shovel or if you have expertise in planting. I just wanted to say that they are also looking for donations. Sponsorship has been great. The plots are 15, they're asking for $15 for a 4x8 plot. That would be your individual plot, but they're also looking for volunteers to help with the community plots where vegetables will be grown for food banks and things like that. And donations also to help those that maybe can't afford the nominal fee for a plot so that they can grow their own vegetables. They did put out an email today looking for a letter of support. So I'm hoping that council will get behind that. The deadline is the 15th, and they're looking to put a grant into the Farm Credit Ag Spirit. And those funds get dispersed in fall of 2023. I know that Councillor McCabe forwarded that on to staff to get that prepared. And also just wanted to highlight some of the things that the BIA is looking to do this summer. And we have another meeting tomorrow, so stay tuned because I know they're eager to get some of those projects on the main street to revitalize the downtown core in Mount Forest.
So Councillor Burke, if I could just dig deeper into one of those comments you made with regard to the Ag Spirit grant. Is that a staff recommendation that's required, or do we need a council resolution to support that?
I'm going to look at staff for that because my understanding is through the email thread that if the group is successful, those funds would be forwarded to the municipality and then dispersed through us. So I'm not sure, but the deadline is next week. So I'm looking, I'm looking at Brooke.
Through Mayor Lennox, thank you. Yeah, my understanding is that in the past, staff have provided those types of letters of support. But if council wants to just be on the safe side and pass a resolution or a recommendation for support, we'll take that as well. So,
okay, probably better safe than sorry. So I'm looking at Councillor Burke
Yeah.
to move that.
So I will move a resolution to support the application for the community garden.
So something like the corporation of the council.
I leave the wording up to staff.
Yeah. Support the, is it specifically the Ag Spirit grant?
That's what it said in the email, that's what the application is for.
So it will say something like that the corporation, the Council of Township of Wellington North supports the proper name. I don't know if it's a Mount Forest Community Garden or Community Garden in their application for the Farm Credit FCC Ag Spirit grant. And if we need to go back and get more proper, more better wording out of
Sure,
we'll do that.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Rankin, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Did I cut you off, Councillor Burke, or were you finished? Okay, sorry. Anybody else have anything they'd like to report on this afternoon?
I don't really have anything to report on. I have a whole pile of meetings this week, though.
Okay.
So for next time.
Okay. Hey, I would just make a comment with regard to Wellington North Power myself. So we've recently got the audited financial statements, and it's been an excellent year for our local utility. The board also did move, you'll hear about this at the annual meeting, but I wanted to give you a heads up on part of it. The board moved to have a dividend payment. But just because of some cash flow hold up, the actual cash exchange will be delayed. The dividend will be declared. But the actual check will not be presented as has been done in the past, pending a loan application for the corporation. So just so that if you're, I don't want you to be blindsided by that. But a healthy contribution to the township's finances. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to report on today, so we'll move on to bylaws. And we dealt with 32 already, right?
Correct, and
And
we
30,
just need 33.
we need to pull out separately.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do that first. So the recommendation that bylaw number 33-23 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. And the reason we're pulling this out is because there was some, it's a purchase as opposed to a sale of land. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Hearn. Any other questions or comments on that one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll go back and deal with the other two. So the recommendation will read that bylaw number 30-23, 31-23 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I think all we've got left is a closed session. So we have a recommendation here to move into closed that reads the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North go into a meeting at 3:46 PM. It is closed to the public under subsection 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, specifically to deal with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And we'll deal with report HR 2023-03 and report CLK 2023-015 and the previous closed session minutes of April 17th. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Hearn, seconded by Councillor Burke. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're in closed.